All right, today I'm continuing my series of EPs with Carcass, Despicable, and this is the gap in between the Surgical Steel and Torn Arteries albums, and it's a melodic death metal thrash album. With Melodeath, there's always kind of a balancing act in between melody and heaviness, I guess. I don't like the term heaviness, but we'll go with that for now. So, and some bands go really, really hard with Melodeath, and you have harder Melodeath bands like The Haunted and Silosis, and then you have really lighter, more melodic bands, far more melodic bands, like a lot of the Finnish bands like Omnium Gatherum, Children of Bodom, Norther, Kalma, Winter Sun. And so Carcass falls, I'd say, a little bit more on the harder side, just a bit, because it's a Melodeath thrash band. Well, actually, they were a Melodeath thrash band. They also do some death and roll type stuff. Death and roll is a genre made by the band Entombed. They were a Swedish Stockholm death metal band, and they started incorporating elements of things like punk, rock, blues. And it was a lot of experimentation. It alienated some of their listeners, but it helped create a genre called death and roll. And so Carcass, on their album Swan Song, started adding death and roll elements to things like melodic death metal and thrash. So they're basically a combination of melodic death metal, thrash, and death and roll. There's some blues elements. Bill Steer is an accomplished blues and blues rock guitarist. He also did some crooning type stuff on Surgical Steel, which is really cool. And so I always say this, but there's a lot going on here. It's got the heaviness of thrash. It's got the catchiness of melodic death metal. It's got some blues and some rock touches. Some of the repetitive riffs are just really, really great on here. They only recycled one song onto Torn Arteries, and that was Under the Scalpel Blade, the third track. And so, but it fits really well on here. It fits really well on Arteries. And this is a fantastic EP. And this would be a really neat primer for Carcass. I wouldn't go as far back as to their grind days. I'd stick with the Melodeath thrash stuff that they do because it's some of the best you can hear. I've seen Carcass before. I saw them on their Surgical Steel tour. It was excellent. It was the first time they played in that area in a long time, and I've worn my Surgical Steel shirt before, and people are like, oh my god, you've seen Carcass. They have that reputation with death metal. So do a couple of other bands like At the Gates and Children of Bodom, may they rest in peace. But this is a fantastic Melodeath EP. I highly suggest you pick up a copy of it, and everything on here is great. The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue is incredibly catchy. The riff at the end is really repetitive, and I don't care. They vamp it, and it's great, and I could listen to it over and over again. Sometimes, some bands are really great with that. Kvelertak, Carcass, they have amazing riffs that you don't really care how repetitive they are, how many times they play it. This is a fantastic EP, and I highly suggest you pick up a copy of this when you get a chance. Thank you.